This is ACMi News, recognized nationwide as the first place winner of the 2022 Hometown Media Award for News Access.
Arlington Public Schools will soon be flooded with students. The first day of school is just days away. How is the school system staying ahead of the COVID crisis this year? We have an update. Arlington has a pair of new hires in town government, one for deputy town manager and the other for Director of Planning and Community Development, and you will meet them both. This hefty marker in Arlington pays tribute to one of Arlington's favorite sons, a hero recognized by the state. What did Samuel Whittemore actually do to earn it? Was it his stubbornness and determination, bravery, hard-wearing grit, heavy-duty attitude? Yes. All of these stories and much more as ACMi News starts right now.
From McLennan Park to Spy Pond, from Poets Corner to the Mystic River, we have Arlington covered, giving you stories that count from people who care. Reliable, trustworthy, dependable. This is the 2022 nationwide award-winning ACMi News.
The first day of classes for Arlington Public Schools begins Tuesday, September 6th, right after the Labor Day holiday. And on this, the third year of the start of school with COVID-19, concerns in the classroom still remain. Hello, I'm Ben Lau.
And I'm Paul Werlin. Glad you could join us today. So, what's the plan for Arlington Public Schools going into the new school year with no COVID expiration date? Here's ACMi News Director Jeff Barnes.
No doubt we'd all appreciate COVID quickly becoming one for the history books, but the ending to this story doesn't appear to be anywhere in sight, which is why a group of health experts, labor leaders, and community organizers held a very sobering news conference Monday, August 22nd, a virtual event led by the Massachusetts Coalition for Health Equity. The group urges the Baker administration, area universities, schools, and business leaders to implement a comprehensive public health plan to keep Massachusetts residents safe this fall and winter seasons. They urge all of us to take COVID seriously amid warnings from the Centers for Disease Control and to prepare for a predicted resurgence of influenza, which would cause an overwhelming strain on the state's healthcare system going into the fall and winter seasons. You'll recall Massachusetts schools dropped the statewide mask requirement back in February, and the state testing program concluded at the end of the school year. The Coalition of Health Experts asked if mask mandates would be immediately triggered if another surge were to build, because in their words, the state's current position on COVID-19 is certainly not as good as in prior years heading into the fall season. Katie Murphy, who was the president of the Massachusetts Nurses Association, had this to say, and we quote, "We all want our society and our schools open. We all want this pandemic to be over, but wishing it won't make it so, and pretending that we're doing all that needs to be done for the fall and winter seasons and what they may portend isn't acceptable on any level." The coalition called on state governments, school leaders, area officials, and employers to take steps ahead of the fall and winter seasons, urging officials to not hesitate to deploy mask mandates early on if positive COVID numbers begin to spike. Coalition members urged the state to require students or workers who contract COVID to isolate for 10 days or until they no longer test positive on a rapid test, a stark contrast from the latest CDC guidelines, which call for at least 5 days of isolation followed by masking. ACMi News reached out to Arlington School Superintendent Dr. Elizabeth Holman on August the 22nd, Monday, and she replied back by email the very same day. This is what she said. "We will be following protocols as articulated by the State Department of Elementary and Secondary Education in collaboration with the Mass Department of Public Health, which do not require masking at our schools. We are currently working with the Arlington Health Department on our protocols and recommendations for the upcoming school year, and those will be published to families late this week or early next week. We will continue mitigation strategies tied to adequate ventilation and will, of course, respect the decisions of families or individuals to mask as they wish." Health experts say vaccine and booster shots have marked a significant improvement in protection over the past 2 years when those options either weren't available or were not adopted as widely. Still, nearly 3 years now into this pandemic, we've learned that even the experts can't predict the path of this worldwide virus, and that this fall and winter seasons are still great unknowns, just like they were in recent years. Health experts say we might still be dealing with a BA5, or we might have a BA6, 7, or 8, or we could soon be dealing with an entirely new variant. And here's the proof. It was only one short year ago. No one even heard the word Omicron. For ACMi News, I'm Jeff Barnes.
Of course, you can always follow what the town is doing to stay ahead of this pandemic as the fall and winter seasons approach. Just go to the town website, arlingtonma.gov. Again, that's arlingtonma.gov. Of course, COVID has taken its toll on the hiring process for school staff nationwide, and Arlington is no different. Roughly 40 job vacancies remain at Arlington Public Schools, with just days to go before the new school year begins. School leaders say slots that need to be filled include social work, nursing, and workers dealing with children age 7 or younger. All teaching posts are expected to be filled by the time classrooms open Tuesday, September 6th, right after the Labor Day weekend. School officials say there may still be openings for special education, specialists, and teaching assistants. Using substitutes or contracted services for some positions can't be ruled out.
Arlington recently was awarded a hefty grant from MassDOT's Shared Streets program, and according to town manager Sandy Pooler, the funds will go towards some much-needed improvements throughout town. ACMi's communications manager, James Milan, spoke to the town manager recently about how the $320,000 grant will be spent.
Yes, we received $320,000 from their Shared Streets program for three different buckets. One is about $144,000 that goes to our Chestnut Street safety project. That is the street that kind of runs behind the parking lot in the town center. So we are redesigning that. We already have a street engineer working on new designs to increase the safety and pedestrian access around that area. So that is the first grant. The second is another $133,000 for changes to Mass Ave. We have a bus rapid transit lane, those red lanes that are painted on the street right near Route 16. We did that first, and then Cambridge came along and they added their own end of those bus transit lanes. We now are going to sort of realign where those lanes go into Cambridge, and then with some of this money, we are going to extend slightly past the hotel down there, the bus lane coming into Arlington. It should increase the ease of traffic flow and continue to have speedy bus service between Arlington and Cambridge. And I'd like to give a shout out to Dan Amsteds and the planning department for securing those grants. We also got $50,000 through the DPW and Mike Rodenticides, our director there, for just some snow removal equipment so we can continue to keep our sidewalks and bus stops clear. So I think that will help us in the winter and make pedestrian and transit access easier for the public.
To see James's entire interview with Sandy Pooler, just go to our website, acmi.tv. Again, that's acmi.tv.
Arlington has a new deputy town manager. Town leaders announced the appointment of Michael Mason as the deputy town manager finance director. Mason is currently the chief financial officer for the Arlington School Department. He'll be overseeing the town's financial departments, including the assessor, comptroller, and treasurer. He's also expected to work with the town's budget director to produce the annual town budget and capital plan. Mason previously worked as business manager for the Chelsea Public School System. He'll transition from the school department to the town manager's office in November. Not to be outdone, Arlington's Department of Planning and Community Development has a new director. Claire Ricker will be heading up Arlington's DPCD next month. Ricker is currently the director of Coalition for a Better Acre, a community development corporation in Lowell, which oversees affordable housing in Lowell, Dracut, and Haverhill. Prior to that, Ms. Ricker worked in the Department of Planning Development for the City of Lowell as Chief Design Planner. She holds a master's from Harvard's Graduate School of Design, a bachelor's degree in history from Mount Holyoke College, and a certificate in construction management from Wentworth Institute of Technology. Ms. Ricker will start on Monday, September 19th, 2022.
There was a grand celebration far above ground on Grove Street recently. A topping off ceremony at the new Public Works facility was held on August 9th. Once this structure is complete, this massive 43,000 square foot building will house workshops, employee facilities, and administrative offices. The property will also include a huge salt shed and an upgraded fueling station. In addition to the new construction, existing buildings are being renovated as well. Once complete, the site will host the Department of Public Works and Inspection Services. Workers were placing the steel beams on the roof and signing their names for future generations to discover. Town leaders say they look forward to moving into the new state-of-the-art facility that will greatly improve operations here. The project is scheduled to be completed in the fall of next year.
Hurd field renovations got underway this week. According to town leaders, the project will require the restriction of access through the field and closing part of the parking lot. Pedestrian and bicycle access will go through the Arlington Reservoir Path Drake Village connection. And signs are now in place to help guide traffic near the field. Improvements include regrading the site, sodding, installing drainage and irrigation equipment, upgrading the lighting system, and installing a porous pathway. The town's Park and Rec Commission was granted Community Preservation Act funding to upgrade Hurd Field. You'll recall public sessions were held last fall soliciting feedback from the community on a final design, which was then approved by Arlington's Conservation Commission. A good portion of the project is expected to be completed sometime this fall. But town leaders say the entire area won't be open until the spring of 2023, depending on the field conditions at that time.
You can't deny it. We need a good soaking. Nearly all of Massachusetts is under some sort of drought condition. Middlesex County, including Arlington, faces extreme drought conditions, according to the latest numbers from U.S. Drought Monitor. And even though we've received some relief in the form of precipitation recently, we are still far behind maintaining a balance in our water supplies, waterways, and plant life. And after succumbing to a rash of recent heat waves, things are not getting better. Residents are asked to minimize water usage as much as possible and be cautious when using open flame grills, matches, or fire pits. And don't forget the flowers and trees. One of the best ways to make sure trees are properly watered over the summer is these tree bags, or tree gators. These slow-release watering bags can go a long way in making sure Arlington's precious canopy remains lush and green for years to come.
Last month, ACMi News aired a story about a hot-button issue here in Arlington, the use of chemical rodenticides and their adverse effects on our ecosystem. You may recall a family of owls died this year at Menotomy Rocks Park, and even though they were not tested to determine the cause of death, many residents believe they ingested some animal that was poisoned by these chemicals. We had a chance to get an update from Representative Sean Garbley, who's co-sponsoring a bill on Beacon Hill to curb the use of toxic rat traps.
Well, it's a huge concern in Arlington, and I've heard from so many constituents that want to see these chemicals and these products banned from usage, and I am wholeheartedly in agreement with that. But the most important thing is to try to start small on regulating these products and figuring out how to educate people on the dangerousness of these products, and educating them that we know the rat problem in your area is bad, but whether it be cats, dogs, owls, birds of prey, they eat the rats and then ingest the poison and die. And that happens in Arlington, that happens in communities all across the Commonwealth. We saw that up in Menotomy Rocks Park, just so sad, and stories about owls dying from rodenticide that just didn't have to happen, and that's the worst part about it. So I am happy the rodenticide bill that I helped draft and co-sponsor with Jim Hawkins, who sponsored the bill he's the rep from Attleboro, passed the House. It is in the Senate. Even though our full formal session ended on July 31st, actually it ended on August 1st at 9 a.m. We had a 23-hour session that I was in the House chambers. So, Jeff, I'm still recovering from that. But my hope is that we can get the Senate to pass it during an informal session, which is going to be from now until the holidays, until the end of December. So, and then a new session, new general court will begin in January. So my hope is we can get the bill over the finish line, past the Senate, and sent to Governor Baker's desk for him to sign it into law. But this is a really important measure to start regulating these products, to start educating people about these products in higher education campuses and communities like Arlington and across the state. Arlington Town Meeting did a home rule petition they sent to the State House, not yet, but soon, that would regulate these products in Arlington, which I'm strongly in support of and will be filing along with Senator Friedman and Representative Rogers. But the bill is really critical, so my hope is we can get it done in the Senate. As I said, it already passed the House.
Representative Garbely says the measure calls for the use of non-toxic methods in all state buildings in Massachusetts. To learn more about where Arlington stands on this issue, just go to the town website, arlingtonma.gov. Again, that's arlingtonma.gov. Arlington proudly has its share of historical markers. You'd expect nothing less given this town's storied history, especially on day one of the Revolutionary War.
One marker in particular celebrates one of Arlington's favorite sons and his legendary toughness on April 19, 1775. Captain Samuel Whittemore, an elderly farmer who in one afternoon overcame some serious odds with determination, grit, and a huge dose of New England stubbornness.
Here's our latest installment of Arlington Through History, Samuel Whittemore, the oldest, bravest, and maybe the gutsiest American revolutionary.
April 19, 1775. The army of King George III is bogged down by skirmishes in Lexington and Concord. News travels fast throughout the countryside, and hundreds of militiamen from nearby towns come to harass the British as they retreat back to Boston. Scores of Minutemen come to Menotomy, modern-day Arlington, hiding behind trees, stone walls, homes, waiting for the exhausted and hostile regulars.
And they were so enraged at that point at having to fight for their lives all the way back from Concord to Boston Harbor that they were slaughtering anybody they found.
Likely the oldest Menotomy combatant, Samuel Whittemore, patiently waits behind the safety of a stone wall near what is now Mystic and Chestnut Streets. Whittemore was said to fight for England in King George's War and the French and Indian War, likely leading troops against Chief Pontiac and the Great Lakes region. During hand-to-hand combat, according to legend, Whittemore purloined a pair of French dueling pistols and a cutlass from opponents he bested. 12 years later, disgusted with British tyranny, Whittemore is now turning on the army he once followed.
He was one of many local militiamen who set up basically on their own doorsteps or thresholds. He lived not far behind us where we're sitting today and barricaded himself behind some stone walls, equipped with all the firepower that he had available, and as he is quoted saying, "I'm going to take a couple of redcoats with me."
As the regulars were in range, Samuel Whittemore shot point blank at a British regular with his flintlock musket. He then took out his French dueling pistols and fatally shot 2 more soldiers of the British Grenadiers.
First, Whittemore killed a couple of the regulars. He's reloading, grabs his cutlass. A couple of the regulars come upon him, and they thought they had dispatched him by bullet, by bayonet, by clubbing him, and they left him for dead.
The regulars left Whittemore to die in a pool of blood near the stone wall. Hours later, it is said, his family found him lying supine on the blood-soaked ground, trying desperately to reload his musket.
They dragged him off to a field hospital, barely alive. A couple of surgeons treated his wounds, and to the surprise of everyone, he survived that day and continued to survive for another generation.
When asked if he had any regrets about that bloody day in Menominee, he's recorded as saying, "No, I would take the same chance all over again." Whittemore died on February 2nd, 1793, and was interred in Arlington's old burying ground.
It was his obituary, and it ran in a newspaper in 1793 called the Columbian Sentinel, which was a famous Boston newspaper of the day. It started publishing in the early 1790s, went for almost 50 years after that. You can think of this almost like a retweet. The story went national. There's a Philadelphia paper, the National Gazette. So this Gazette in Philadelphia runs it as a current news story. Died February 2nd instant, meaning this month, Samuel Whittemore of West Cambridge. And they run the whole text of his obituary right there.
"212 years later, in 2005, Massachusetts recognized Whittemore as an official state hero. This memorial marker stands now as a testament to Whittemore's uncanny valor in battle. It's been moved from time to time in the vicinity of the park that now bears his name.
He was one tough soldier on a day when a lot of tough soldiers died. I think it's important to remember him because it reveals something of what was going on right here in our town at that time.
Discrepancies with his age or the exact spot where Whittemore took his last stand is trifling compared to the astonishing bravery he possessed on the field of battle to help forge a new nation.
I think I've seen that spirit. I think I've heard it from many veterans of more recent wars, but it's that same, this is my home and I'm defending it, and I'm not going to leave without a fight.
For ACMi News, I'm Jeff Barnes.
We'd like to thank local historians Michael Ruderman and Richard Duffy for helping us tell Samuel Whittemore's story. If you attended the Red Sox game against the Braves on August 9th, you noticed that Arlington got some props at Fenway.
The Bo Sox invited Arlington police officer Mike Hogan and his canine partner Eiko to the ballgame. Eiko was recognized at home plate as Service Dog of the Game, part of the Red Sox Summer Series in which a service dog is recognized before Tuesday ball games. Eiko, a familiar face in these parts, is a 7-year-old German Shepherd who is certified in both patrol and narcotics through the Boston Police Canine Academy. He's been with the Arlington Police Department since 2016. Congratulations, Officer Hogan and Eiko.
ACMi News had the opportunity to talk to an entertainment legend this week. Comedian impersonator Rich Little, a master mimic of more than 200 voices, continues to impress generations with his touring schedule throughout the U.S. and Canada.
He has a book now in its third printing entitled People I've Known and Been. From imitating JFK to Joe Biden, Jack Benny, Johnny Carson, John Wayne, and Jimmy Stewart, Rich Little has done them all.
ACMi News Director Jeff Barnes had a half-hour chat with Mr. Little. Clearly not enough time to cover such an extraordinary body of work.
He probably does a wider range of impressions than any guy working today. Would you welcome, please, Rich Little. Rich.
And this is Johnny Carson in Washington. Now before was Bing Crosby. Hoo-hoo, there's Kathy and the kids sitting around the old campfire flipping the old flapjacks, huh?
You're Canadian. You were born in Ottawa. And
right.
I guess it all started out in school or whatever, your family. You started imitating students, local politicians, your prime minister. Tell us how it went from there.
Well, I started imitating teachers. They were my first subjects. And it wasn't long before the teachers knew I was going to be in show business because they started to charge a 2-drink minimum and a cover charge.
Hey, that's a hip school. That's all right.
And I just kept growing, and then I left Canada rather for the United States in 1964.
And in 64, of all people, it was Judy Garland, the Judy Garland show. And you did a dynamic impersonation of actor James Mason. And I guess your connection, singer and songwriter Mel Torme, got you that job. And from what I understand, Judy Garland impersonators, I'm not quite sure. Can you explain that story?
No, she didn't want to book an impersonator in a show because she told Mel Torme that she said, "I don't like impersonators at all. They make me fart." That's what she said.
Wow.
Do you believe that little gal from Kansas said that?
Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz actually said that.
Yeah,
but you know what? You got
said.
on the show. So how did you get your foot in the door there?
Well, the thing was, he didn't like impersonators, and he was playing a tape that I had done a lot of voices on, and she wasn't interested. And so she said, "Turn it off." And he said, "Just listen a little longer." And then she heard my impression of James Mason. As soon as I started to do James Mason, she said, "Book him on the show."
Do John Wayne again.
Well, the road gets rougher, it's lonelier and tougher. Oh, don't crowd me.
So that show went over so well that it really started my career.
And then you started with or you probably had under your belt already, some Hollywood movie stars, the likes of, my gosh, Jack Benny, George Burns, Jimmy Stewart.
Well, Jim used to say to me, "Rich, I wish I'd known you when I was making all those movies back in the 40s, and you could have dubbed them for me."
Rich Little, it is a pleasure to meet you. I grew up with you. You're a very talented man. It's great you look great, and it's great to see you're still doing it and turning on new generations of people with your incredible talents.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
12 years ago, Rich Little became a U.S. citizen and was sworn in with a suggestion from the judge to do it as John Wayne. If you're interested in purchasing Rich Little's book, People I've Known and Been, just go to his webpage, therichlittle.com. Again, that's therichlittle.com. And there's more where that came from. Rich Little guest hosted The Carson Show, a record-setting 23 times. Next week, he tells us about The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson and the Dean Martin comedy roasts. The stories Rich has on those two shows alone are history-making.
That'll do it for this week's edition of ACMi News. I'm Ben Lau.
And I'm Paul Werlin. Thanks so much for joining us. Quoting the singing group The Happenings now from way back when, in 1966, we will see you in September.
You can always check out our latest segments and newscasts on the web at acmi.tv/news. And don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at ACMi News. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. You'll find us at youtube.com/ACMi News. If you have any news tips for us or wish to become a citizen journalist, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at news@acmi.tv or stop by ACMI Studio A at 85 Park Avenue.